Hello, everyone. How you doing? You're very welcome to this week's edition of the Premier hurling legend, the Rattler, Mickey Byrne, and with me to discuss this hurling legend, we have his son. We have his son Noel Byrne, and of course a good friend of mine, Noel Wadge. Hello, lads. How are you?
How are you doing, Aidan?
Not
Well
too
known,
bad. Thanks
How are
very
you,
much
Noel?
thanks very
good
much
now.
for joining us. And yeah, so just to explain to you, as you know, the Thurles or Tipperary is the birthplace of the GAA in Ireland, and of course, because I suppose Tipperary is the essence of GAA, we thought it would be appropriate to discuss this man, the Rattler, Mickey Byrne, who has been a hurling legend and I suppose a hurling icon in Tipperary. But I suppose just to know his son Noel there for a minute. I suppose a lot of people would know him as the Rattler, Mickey Byrne, the hurler, but he's also Mickey Rattler Byrne, Rattler, the Mickey Byrne, the family man as well. So I suppose growing up with him as him being a family man, that would be the different side that people mightn't see to him. What was he like as a father and a husband, and I suppose just to have as a friend?
Yeah, I suppose the best description I would give him away from the hurling world, Aidan, would be he was a hard-working man. He was a truck driver all his life with the sugar company, and in latter years, Earn Foods. Worked very hard, and at weekends in his spare time, he ran a hackney service. So we were a large family. There was seven of us in it. Two passed away at a young age. So as you know, the mother in those times was always at home, and so the Rattler was the main breadwinner. So and through all of that, he still fitted in a good hurling career as well, Aidan. So hardworking is probably the best description I could describe him for you.
That's it. And of course, Noel, you knew him as well. You had the honour of knowing him as well. Can you give me some of your memories maybe of him?
Well, I've only seen it on YouTube and that, but he was, from what my family were saying, he was a legend in all ways, as Noel has just said there. Like,
That's it. And of course,
you know,
I suppose he would have been of the same era of Christy Ring. Obviously, similar in many ways, like a family man as well.
yeah,
Seen the documentary of him of Christy Ring, and he was a truck driver as well. I think he drove for Shell or something like that. I suppose no more than Christy Ring. I suppose the Rattler Mickey Byrne, he would have went everywhere. His hurley would have went everywhere with him on his journeys wherever he was going in the truck as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Christy Ring, they were great rivals on the field, and I suppose there was no prisoners taken. But the ironic part about it was off the field, even past when both of them had retired, they were great friends. They kept in touch. Ring was a regular caller to our house in Thurles, and they had great respect for each other. And just as you mentioned, Christy, there was one particular story, Aidan. I think it was a Munster semi-final down in Limerick, and Tipping Cork. Time was up, and Cork got a line ball in injury time, and sure, no one better than Ring to put it over the bar, and Cork won the game by a pint. But afterwards, both teams, in those times, Aidan, both teams used to go to the same hotel, sit at the same table after a game, and exchange pleasantries or whatever you like to call it. But after that particular game, the Cork won it by a pint, and both teams adjourned to the Green Isle Hotel on the Ennis Road afterwards, and they were all sitting down. And of course, who was missing was Ring, and I think he was going to have getting a few stitches. But when he did make an entrance, they were well into the main course. And of course, to be fair, both sets of players gave him a round of applause. Yeah. And the Rattler did pass a comment to Christy. He says, "God, Christy, we'll have to shoot you, Christy, like that, And it was quick off the tongue as well as the Rattler. Ring's response to the Rattler was, "By Jesus Burns," he says, "you tried everything today," he says.
Many strokes were pulled on that day.
Yeah, but it was left on the field. That's the one
Yeah.
thing that you can say about it,
And I
compared
suppose
to
when you think about like hurling back in those days, the hurley was different. I suppose the rules were different. It was no holes barred, kind of the similar as today as well. But I suppose the hurleys have changed throughout the years. The rules have changed as well. I suppose the way the championship is played has played out as well. I mean, it's gotten a lot more scientific nowadays compared to then, but you still had to be very fit and you had to be able to take the rattles back in those days because I suppose the referees back then weren't as whistle happy as they are now. Like they give frees for anything now, really.
Absolutely, yeah. The Rattler used to say with the modern game, he says, you could hurl now with eggs in your pockets, he says, and they wouldn't break him, he'd say,
Oh,
But it is a different game, isn't it, Noel?
Yeah, big time. Totally different.
Yeah. And from the videos you would have watched, Noel, like you were saying on YouTube and different things like that, what are your thoughts on, we say, hurling back then and hurling now? And I just mentioned the shape of the hurl as well. That's changed a lot over the years as well.
Oh, it has, yeah. Back then, like, you're getting slaps the whole time, like, and it was funny as you said there about referees.
Your favorite people, though.
But like back then, it was some hurling, some legends, as Noel said there, Christy Ring, MICKY, those boys. You'd look up to them now, but sadly they've all passed away. But like if people can carry on the tradition of hurling in now, like with the likes of Joe Canning and those boys, like it's brilliant to see that, and
yeah.
I've retired hurling there in 2013, and God, it still has come on since I've stopped playing. Like,
yeah, I mean, training and everything, the amount of effort that you have to put into training nowadays is something else as well. But and another thing about between back then and now is there was no hurleys and there was no shin pads and. What's your thoughts on like Noel just said there a few minutes ago about the Rattler Mickey BYRNE's relationship with Christy Ring? You probably would have seen the documentary on Christy Ring as well, and I suppose it was very sad how it was kind of, like how he knew himself. He said, "Look, I can't play today," and then one day people woke up and heard that he was dead. That was rather sad that people didn't get to say goodbye to him before he passed away or whatever. That was kind of a sad thing for a legend. But I suppose after he retired from playing, he actually gave an awful lot back to hurling, as in, he did a lot of coaching with various teams as well. That was nice as well, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, yeah. Like you look at different players throughout the era, they all give back when they finished, like, and that to me is kind of brilliant. They're finished. They've put in their time on the field. Now they're putting in their time as a selector or a manager or that, like, So it's great that they do it that way, like, as well, like.
Yeah, and I suppose, lads, as well, just to touch on another point, I think it's very relevant. A huge thing back then as well was the Railway Cup, wasn't it, in both hurling and football? It was nearly as big as the All-Ireland back then, wasn't it? Like Ulster, Munster, Leinster and Connacht, and obviously for Connacht it was probably mostly Galway players, as it kind of is now. But there's nothing really about the Railway Cup nowadays, and that's sad, isn't it? It's another tradition lost.
Yeah, the Railway Cup was the highlight of the players back in those days. I have a photograph there inside one of the other rooms of the Munster team, and to look at the players on it, Ring, John Doyle, the Rattler, Jimmy Finn, Tony Redden, all these greats of the game, and from other counties, the records of Wexford, and you could keep on going naming them and naming. But what stuck out to me more so, apart from the photograph of the great team, was the crowd that were there. There was always on average 70 to 80,000 in Croke Park on Patrick's Day for the Railway Cup. And the Rattler treasured those medals as much as anybody. And they're a lovely medal as well, the Railway Cup medal. It's a medal with with the 4 provinces on it. It's a colourful medal, and took great pride in that medal. I can tell you, anytime that Munster won it, But it's look at I suppose what has probably happened is the present player is committed so much to his county and his club. Trying to fit everything into a calendar year is next to impossible. You know what I mean? They're semi-professional. It is. You know what I mean?
That's it. And like when you consider like this year, it has been the way for the last couple of years in both Leinster and Munster. Like it's round robin now, so they play 2 or 3 games, two games in a row, and then they have a weekend off. And if they're not training, if they're not playing, they've training, and it is a totally different lifestyle for a hurler now compared to back then. But it was just just to name some of his achievements there: 5 All-Irelands and 5 Munster Championships. And how many Railway Cup medals has he?
He has 6 Railway Cups.
There you go. So that's a huge achievement, and it's a testament to his career, Noel, isn't it?
Yeah, 7 national leagues.
Yeah. So what do you think of that, Noel? Noel Walsh?
Yeah,
I think. But funny enough, before Noel says, of all the medals that he has, he takes his biggest pride, I suppose, would have been his 14 county senior titles.
Yeah,
which is a record in Tipperary, and and it'll never be equalled. I think Jimmy Dial was the nearest to him with 9 or 10. I think one of the two Mivara lads had 8 or 9 as well. But those 14 medals, they were his pride and joy. He thought more of them than any Railway Cups, any All-Irons. Won them with his friends, with his mates, all his club mates. And so, yeah, they stand out as being the number one highlight of his career.
And I suppose mentioning about his club as well, back then you would have stayed with your club, with the same club that you started with, I suppose, at under 12s right up. I suppose with the exception again of Christy Ring, who changed from his club to the Glen or whatever, So that, but back then it was kind of. It was you more or less stayed with your club or whatever, unless you obviously moved to a different part of the country.
Yeah, there was no underage hurling then back then as well, Aidan.
Oh, right. Okay.
The first kind of experience you had with hurling was when you went to school, and there were different types of cup competitions down here in Tipperary. We have the Harty Cup competition and Dean Ryan Cups, things like that. They were the kind of your introduction, and then. Your first, from a club point of view, minor hurling was your first opportunity to wear a club jersey. There was no under 12s or 13s up along. That wasn't heard of back then compared to now. And this for and against, some people say that kids are getting too much of it. They're starting playing under 10 now, and by the time they come to 15, 16, they have enough of it, and they're turning to other sports, or they're just packing it in altogether. They don't have the same appetite anymore. Yeah. So this for and against, Aidan,
That's it. And just in the background there, we were saying off air there, a lovely framed jersey. You were saying that there's a lovely story behind that jersey, jersey, and above it, the 3 in a row tip team as well. There's 3 photos there. Could you tell us a bit about them?
Yeah, that's tip 3 in a row team. The only tip team to ever win 3 in a row, and still is the case to this day. But the particular jersey that's hanging on the wall is the Rattlers 1949 jersey. And they went to, after winning the All-Ireland in 49, they beat Laois in the All-Ireland. And they were due to go to America in October, which was a few weeks after the All-Ireland. So they were doing a bit of training, getting ready for their trip to America, when, after training one night, the famous Dan Breen drove in under the stand above in the sports field in Thurles, which is now Semple Stadium. And all the lads gathered around, and Dan Breen said a few words, wishing them the best on their trip to America, and opened the boot of the car and took out that box of jerseys and gave them all their jersey. And he insisted that they wear it, to the county board, that they wear it. And he emblazoned the Irish crest on every jersey. As you know, he was a fierce Irishman, Dan Breen was, and wanted those jerseys wore, and they did. They wore those jerseys out in America when they went out, and So we're lucky enough to still have that jersey, Aidan. It's a pride of place in this house, I can tell you.
And what are your thoughts on that, Noel? That's a nice touch, isn't it?
It's very nice touch, yeah.
Yeah. So and of course on the graphic you would have saw as well, and you were telling me off air as well. I have the picture of his book as well. The story of his life, and you were saying there's a Roscommon connection out there. Our listeners here in Roscommon now would be interested to hear this one.
Yeah, funny enough, as well as being the hurler the Rattler was a great character. He was very quick-witted and quick off the tongue, and was always a great man to tell stories. And a lot of people said to us as a family that we should record all those stories and put them in a book form. So myself and my brother Paul, Paul is the oldest. Paul won an All-Ireland with Tip in 71. They beat Kilkenny. But Paul and myself and a good friend of ours, who's Michael Dundon, he'd be the editor of the Tipperary Star. And the three of us got together over a period of 6 months, and we put that book together. But around the same time, Aidan, we got a phone call from a chap from Roscommon who had moved to Hollywood in Florida.
Wow.
And his name is Mark Rowe.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'm not sure if you know the gentleman.
Yeah.
But Mark moved to Hollywood in Florida with his partner, Karen Flynn. Karen was a girl from Nina in Tipperary. And they were opening a business, a kind of a pub, an eatery, and that type of thing in Roscommon. And Mark Rowe rang us around 2008 or 9 when they were setting up in Florida to know could he name the pub after the Rattler. And so we said yes. We were privileged to be asked, but I did ask him at the time. I said, "How in the name of God?" I said, "Does a man from Roscommon," I said, "want to call his pub in America," I said, "after a Tipperary hurler?" And Mark said to me at that time, when he was growing up, his father was a Tipperary hurling fanatic, and the Rattler would have been his idol.
Very good.
Going back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and he could think of no one better to call the pub after. So we gave him due permission to continue on with his project, and I'm glad to say to this day it's a thriving business out there. And we visited, and it's full of hurling and football memorabilia from Ireland, and lots of the Rattler memorabilia is dotted around the various walls of the pub. And I just think it's a nice story.
Yeah.
And good luck to them, and I'm delighted that they made a huge success of it.
Let's say that just another thing on Roscommon. I think I might have said this to Noel as well. There's a story you heard of the Jimmy Murray, the brilliant footballer years ago for Roscommon, and he had a pub in the Crockery where he was from, and he years ago. Now my dad was a fireman at the start, but at the time, but the pub went on fire. Okay. And he had the ball from the from the year they won the All-Ireland.
Okay.
And a lot of things were burnt down, but that was the one thing that was actually saved that wasn't destroyed, was the football from that All-Ireland final. So it's he was delighted. Now Lord of mercy, he's no longer with us, but that's an era that was full of football and hurling legends, and and it's no more than nowadays. Nowadays we have our hurling legends and football legends as well.
Yeah,
but isn't that a lovely little story and a lovely little connection?
Yes, absolutely.
I suppose just going back on to his love of hurling. How did his love of hurling or his interest in hurling come about, and maybe a bit about his club as well?
Yeah, funny enough, the Rattler was born, and he spent his early years in Dublin, and moved down when he was very young, around 8 or 9. And his uncle, believe it or not, was a coffin maker.
Oh, right.
Right. And he met him, his uncle met him his first hurley when he was only 8 or 9. And believe it or not, he made it out of the lid of a coffin. So you can imagine what that hurley was like. So over time, he developed a love for the game. And he worked, like I said earlier, in the sugar factory, which was very hurling driven industry, sugar factory. Anyone worked in the sugar factory, great hurlers. All the farmers brought in their beat there. So there was a huge hurling connection everywhere he turned throughout his life. And that's probably where the early days, and he went into the Thurles CBS then, the Christian Brothers in Thurles, and played at various underage levels and won various medals and stuff like that. And then that led him into his club scene with Thurles Arseholes, and a club he idolised all his life, and was president of the club for a good number of years, captained them, winning numerous county titles and stuff like that, and was a great ambassador as well for the club, because in latter years when he was finishing up, we had no All-Ireland Club Championship back then, Aidan.
Right.
And a lot of games were invitational. So Thurles Arseholes went the length and breadth of Ireland playing exhibition games and stuff like that. And, so it was part and parcel of his life. He couldn't escape it. And it rubbed off on the rest of us as well.
That's it. And, I suppose the tradition has been in the family. Has been in the family ever since, and I suppose it is great to see. And I suppose, like a lot of people, if you say to them, what's your favorite ground, or where would you have loved to play? Now, not everyone has played in Croke Park, but a lot of people would say Croke Park. But I was lucky enough to be I suppose in Semple Stadium with Noel and a food, just visiting it and having a look around in it. Yeah. So, even just being there and having a look around, there's something special about, even when we visited it the couple of times there, Noel, there was something special about it. There was an aura about it.
Yeah.
That's funny enough, and Noel is right when he says there is an aura. But funny enough, Thurles people, I suppose I don't say they don't appreciate Semple Stadium, but we take Semple Stadium for granted up there.
Yeah,
we do. Yeah.
Know what I mean, Noel? And you can. Noel walks in there anytime he likes. He's you know what I mean. Whereas people from other counties and stuff like that, Noel is a regular attendee at tip training sessions. He can walk in there, have conversations with the Liam Carls and the Jamie Callans of this world, and whereas people from outside of Thurles or Tipperary or wherever, that's a huge thrill for them to get in there and Noel, am I? We take it for granted.
You're
maybe.
right there, yeah. We take it for granted, and I'd love to go there anytime I can go. And there's a few times there I was stopped from going in watching them training, and that would annoy anyone, But
I've seen how passionate you are about it,
yeah, they don't want other teams seeing them and their tactics, either.
Keep behind closed doors.
Yeah, that would be the reason, but I'd get a sense of kind of power and thrill from being inside that stadium,
Yeah, and from a Thurles point of view as well, Aidan, I don't know, did you see it on your visit to Semple Stadium? But outside is what we call the outside field, Aidan.
Yeah.
That would be Thurles Arseholes, we'll say home ground, as the fella says. And so everywhere you look up there, then you have the Thurles Arseholes Social Centre. You now have the dome that's beside it. At the back of Semple Stadium, you have Dr. Maris Park, where all the inter-county teams train, and that's being upgraded, floodlights, all weather. So it's moved on to a different level. It's more of a commercial thing now as well, as opposed to years ago.
That's it. And I suppose the feeling I got, it's a special feel. But when you think about it, you think about all the legends, the same kind of you'd have in Croke Park. You think about Ginny, the legends that would have played on that pitch. There's a pitch here in Roscommon at St. Coleman's Park, and that's where Connacht games, the county team used to have their games years ago. And you think, the Jimmy Murrays and all those special and Roscommon football legends and that. But also, in Thurles, you have all the legends from Cork and Tip and Clare and all these. And it's just amazing, like when you think about God, all the players down the years that would have played on that pitch.
Yeah, and those counties you mentioned, Cork in particular, as Noel will vouch for, Cork love coming to play to Thurles.
Yeah,
Semple Stadium is still renowned as the best hurling sod in the country, and that's not taking anything from Croke Park or any other pitch, but that draw is there all the time. You ask any inter-county hurler from any county, where is the one place they love to play, and they all say Semple Stadium in Thurles. And that aura that you mentioned, Aidan, that's there, and that'll continue. And like I said, particularly with the Cork people love coming to Semple Stadium, and it creates there's an atmosphere of its own. It takes on a life of its own. When Cork are playing in Thurles is a different town altogether. It's the atmosphere. It do you good, wouldn't it, Noel, just to walk up when Cork are there, and
even just walking up through the square.
Yeah, they're the best supporters of them. I say.
That's it, and it's nice. I had the honour of being myself and Noel went to the Tip Limerick game, and like you see Munster Championship games like in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and all that, and you say, God, every Munster Championship game is amazing, and but to actually be there on the Munster Championship day is lovely.
Yeah, Aidan, you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about commitment with players and the round robin and stuff. The round robin, that's the one thing. If I was to probably say, the one thing I miss from Munster Championship hurling is what we used to call knockout day.
Yeah,
like you got your chance, you played quarter final, semi final, and to do or die on the day, and that created a completely different atmosphere altogether. You might say it's unfair on the players that they're training for 4 or 5 months, they lose one match and they're gone. But that special feeling or that special atmosphere has kind of like the round robin thing. Okay, if we lose today, we have another chance next week or whatever, or a draw or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think, okay, I know the GA will disagree with me on it, but it's the one thing I miss from the Munster Championship is the knockout hurling aspect of it.
That's it. And I think nearly, because of that in the round robin series as well, it nearly takes, like if you lose a semi-final or if you lose the final, it's, the Munster final, it's okay because there's the group, there's the quarter.
That's what
there's a safety net, but back then there wasn't. So that kind of brings a bit more intensity to Munster final or Munster semi-final day as well. Isn't that right, Noel?
I'm sure, I've no doubt as well. The same applies in all the provinces,
Yeah, that's it. And it's there's something special about it. So listen, thanks very much, lads, for taking the time out to do this week's podcast, and we look forward to doing it all again next week.
Absolutely, Aidan, no problem. And thank you, Noel. Well, thank you for opening the door, Noel. Well done.
No problem. Thanks very much, Noel, and thanks very much, Noel BYRNE, as well. So that was myself and Noel BYRNE and Noel Walsh talking about the Rattler Mickey BYRNE. And don't forget to join us next week for episode 2.